Yeah.
I call this meeting to order. Please stand and join me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and good morning and welcome to the September 19th, 2023 County Board meeting. Just want to welcome everyone this morning and that we will move on to our agenda. So we are on to approving our regular meeting proposed agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll move the agenda as presented.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Danielowski.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Felber. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Item number 2 on our agenda is that of our open forum. Ms. Keisha Broderick.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have one person signed up this morning, and it is Brett Collier of Big Lake speaking on the 2040 comp plan.
Okay. Good morning, Brett.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Brett Collier, Big Lake. A couple of days ago, I downloaded a copy of the Sherburne County 2040 Comprehensive Plan draft. I'm only a third of the way through, and with what I've found so far, I could be standing up here for over an hour. So in order to get as much as I can, I'm going to be blunt and will not be politically correct. Once I finish reviewing this draft, I'll be sending all of you my comments, as well as all the people in the cities and the townships. Page 2, quote, "It is the single most important collection of policies and implementation initiatives that help guide land use decision." That's a bold statement that I can't say I agree with. The most important collection of policies are the individual policies maintained by the county in each town. Any plan should be constructed to protect the environment, the community, and way of life that has already been established in Sherburne County. Changes, quote, "Changes in the economy driven by changes in consumer demand, many of which were already in motion but were then amplified by COVID-19. No, the COVID-19 fiasco should not be a driver when it comes to a comprehensive plan, when it comes to future development and land use. What needs to be recognized is that the shutdown, doling out of COVID funds was a mistake and should never happen again. Government should never shut down businesses and allow some others to remain open." Page 4, quote, "The county recognizes and respects Indigenous people as traditional stewards of the land and water and enduring relationships that exist between Indigenous people and the traditional territories." There is no need for language like this in the comp plan. Remember, the Indigenous people, the Indians, lost the wars. We are under no obligation other than those outlined in various treaties to manage our land in Minnesota per their wishes. To make a comparison, you individuals all ran against someone and beat them in the election, and they're not sitting in a chair next to you voting on issues. Quote, "Colonization is current and ongoing process." No, it's not. We've finished with colonization, settling the land in Minnesota. The second paragraph is an incomplete history lesson concerning the people that lived in the land of Minnesota prior to being settled by colonists. Why don't you tell how each succeeding tribe murdered and killed the members of the preceding tribe to obtain their land? That's what happened, you know. Why don't you recognize that? The first people arrived in the area known as Minnesota over 12,000 years ago. What about all of them? What about their wishes? This paragraph contains no bearing on the 2040 plan and should be removed. Perhaps under your logic, we should consider what the English think before we do with the land, since they own the U.S. first. Page 9, housing needs. Why no mention of non-first-time buyer single homes, or farmstead homes, multi-acre properties with businesses, vacation homes, lake cabins? Many do not prescribe to the socialist high-density dreams of the ruling class. Plus, quote, "Developing affordable housing is not a category of home. All housing needs to be affordable, and the way to accomplish that is to reduce inflation, reduce sales and property taxes. Affordable housing is not a style of housing and needs to be removed from this list." And the last bullet, quote, "The county has seen and will continue to see significant increases in minority populations, which had led to new populations looking for smaller tracts of land to farm. I don't care what color your skin is or from what country you came from or your ancestors came from. Everything needs to be equal. This bullet is attempting to set up a racist program where one group of people is given preferential treatment over another.
Thanks, Brett. Your time is up.
Wait 3 minutes?
Yep, you were at 3 a little bit ago.
Oh.
So
Oh, okay. Well, I had one paragraph left, but you get the point. Thank you.
you will be providing us with that, so thank you. Any others, Keisha?
There is nobody else signed up, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda, we are going to be pulling items number 3.3 and 3.4. We will be addressing those at the end of our consent agenda. So move those after 3.14. So with that change, I would be open to a motion.
So moved.
Motion's made by Commissioner Halls,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Felber. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So moving on now to agenda item 3.3, that of consider and improve the communication and media guidelines policy. There was a typo in that, and we have a minor language change. So I will turn this over to Administrator Bruce Messelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Yes, this policy is intended primarily to help coordinate communications within the day-to-day operations of the county, specifically with county staff. What we did is we noticed a missing word and then a redundant word, so we clarified those. And then the clarification was also to clarify the policy really applies to the appointed officials of the county. Elected officials do have their own independent election certificate and have certain ability and authority to craft their own communications. And then within that, their departments may also have communication policies, so as long as they're not contradictory with this one, they would be recognized. And then last but not least, with respect to commissioners, the County Board of Commissioners has their own operating rules of procedure, so those would apply versus the policy.
Okay. So with that, I would be open to a motion.
So moved.
Motion's made by Commissioner Halls,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any questions or comments on that?
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Just real
Commissioner
quick, I
Halls.
was the one who asked that to be pulled, just to clarify the language that specifically around the elected officials have the ability to speak as necessary. So I'm in favor of it at this point.
Okay, others? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. And then also with agenda item 3.4, consider and approve the renewal of the state and federal representation agreements. Commissioner Halls.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I asked that one to be pulled as well, just so that we had clarification that we can modify the scope or priorities as we come into the new year, because some things have changed, and we need to be able to react. That was my only concern, and my understanding from Administrator Messelt is that is the case. We can make those adjustments. Correct?
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Commissioner Hulls, you are correct, sir. Both of the agreements have a kind of other duties as assigned clause. They do identify at the state level, the primary project at this time is the overpass in Zimmerman. At the federal level, it's the overpass and parks funding. The reason why parks funding is not in the state program is because we're really going after administrative grants at this point. We're not seeking legislative funding. But the board does have the purview and authority to modify those priorities, add those priorities, or change those priorities. If there's a significant impact to the contract, I'm sure the consultant will want to talk about either adjusting hours or even adding hours.
So with that, I'd also be open to a motion.
So moved.
Motion's made by Commissioner Gray,
I'll second, Madam Chair.
seconded by Commissioner Danielowski to consider and approve the renewal of the state and federal representation agreements. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Good, thank you. Moving on now to agenda item, that of announcements, item number 4. Administrator Messelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I think Keisha handed out to everybody the doodle poll, or is that just a? So I'm going to ask you to pull that out, and at the end of my announcements, we're going to assign commissioners to the County Connect meetings. If you don't have it, I can read it off to you. But I'll go on with announcements first. If not, just open your calendars and be ready here. So the first note is just a highlight that the Excel annual breakfast for Monticello and Becker is coming up soon. Unfortunately, it's scheduled on the same day that we will all be in training up north. That's the 27th of September, Wednesday. So I just want the board to be aware that there is a Zoom luncheon meeting with Excel for Thursday, the 28th. And if you're interested, we can get you the link to that. So it's an update that's focused more for Becker, but they're willing to have us join as well for general updates on Excel Energy. So there's an alternative to that breakfast. And I'll just, FYI, send down the original invite, and then if you want to note again, the 28th. And I will send that link out so you can participate. Next, just a note also, in the post-COVID world, things are getting back to some semblance of normalcy. The Sherburne History Center is restarting its prior very successful fundraising event. On the 14th of October, which is a Saturday, they'll be having a fundraising activity, and we do have an invitation. So I'll pass that around as well, and would encourage commissioners to consider possibly attending and supporting the History Center. A little further down on your calendar, just to note, the Transportation Alliance will be having its annual meeting on November 9th. Transportation funding got a really significant infusion of funds this year, but there's still a lot of questions and a lot of interest around it. So I would encourage commissioners who are interested to consider attending the Transportation Alliance annual meeting on the 9th of November. And then finally, just a note for the board in terms of calendar, October 3rd, we do have an evening meeting. I'm just noting it, so you make sure you have that on your calendar. That's a 7 p.m. meeting. We will be having that here. I don't know if that also means the commissioners would be doing dinner beforehand, but we'd need to know that so we can get that posted. And then with respect to workshops on the agenda, just to note that staff would like to add the following 3 workshops for this fall. One would be a discussion on legislative priorities. Now that you've come out of AMC, I think you have a good idea where county priorities are across the state. We'd like to sit down, have our consultants come in, virtually or in person, and just have a workshop with the board to talk about what they see the legislative session looking like next year. Second of all, I'd like to schedule a workshop to discuss the strategic plan of the county. It actually, at this point, expires at the end of this year. We did an update for a 3-year period, so 21 through 23. And we just want to discuss with the board what you'd like to do in terms of your strategic plan. And then finally, workshop, Michelle would like to schedule a discussion with the county board regarding assessing, both short-term and long-term. One of the options in front of the board is to consider migrating to what's called a true county board or true county assessing plan. There's some pros and cons to it. St. Louis County recently went through that. Given some of the dynamics that we're seeing in the county in terms of assessing, Michelle just wanted the board to be aware of your options. And so we'll like to get that scheduled unless there's an objection to that. Okay, then let's circle back to County Connect meetings. We have a total of 9 meetings scheduled, and it looks like we are fortunate that we have commissioners who can attend all of those meetings. And so what I'd like to do is just go through them and have you decide which commissioner would like to attend those, if that works for you.
And we would, the preference is, I think, one commissioner. at
One
each.
commissioner, yep. And so there's an opportunity for everybody to go to 2, except one would only go to 1, or if you really feel you want to come to 2 with staff, then we can double that 1. So Tuesday, the 3rd, we have an afternoon meeting, 1:15 to 1:45. All commissioners other than Commissioner Phobie said they were available. Does anybody have a strong preference for that first meeting?
I would like to do that one if nobody has any objection.
Okay. There's also one that evening, and again, I note that this is right before your board meeting, so we'd have to work around your dinner schedule as well, but it's 6:45 or 5:45 to 6:15 p.m. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is Wednesday, 1:15 to 1:45. Commissioner Felber and Commissioner Hulse cannot participate, so I would look for Gary, Rand, or Lisa to handle that one.
I can do that one.
Okay. Then following that, in the afternoon, there's one 2:30 to 3 o'clock. And again, everybody can take two if you want.
I can do that one.
Okay. Thursday, the 5th, again, 1:15 to 1:45. Commissioner Felber and Danielowski are unavailable.
I can.
Okay. Wow, we all got one. That's great. Okay, then the last four, again, that afternoon, 2:30 to 3 p.m.
I'm here.
All right, you want to do two in a row?
Yeah, I'll do two
Okay.
in a row.
And then the next week, Tuesday, the 10th, 1:30 to 2 p.m. Everybody but Commissioner Hall said they were available.
I can do that one.
Okay. And the 12th, we have two meetings, one in the morning, 10:30, and one in the afternoon at 1:30. And everybody's available in the afternoon. Commissioner Danielowski and Commissioner Hall said they were not available in the morning.
I can do the morning.
Okay, Commissioner Felber in the morning?
I'll do the afternoon.
Afternoon. Okay, so I will get this sent out to you all. Thank you so much. We're really looking forward to it. I think I'll provide just a couple of suggested talking points for the commissioners. Administration will not have any talking points. It's primarily HR benefits updates, and then the commissioners' comments and Qs and As.
Bruce and I spoke a bit, and we thought the commissioners could kind of be the bookends, welcoming people, just saying a few words, and then also at the end, thanking them for coming and thanking them. These were very well received the last time around, so thanks for your participation in those.
And thank you so much for going through the exercise. Actually, doing the doodle beforehand helped today, so it was a little more efficient. Appreciate your time.
Okay. So, any other announcements? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to our regular agenda. Item number 5.1, consider and approve a proclamation recognizing September 17th, 2023 as Constitution Day. I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Halls.
Thank you. I'll read the proclamation.
Do you want to just talk a little bit about how this came, or?
Yeah, so this was a discussion that we had early on when we joined started the new board at this term, and it was important to several of us to really emphasize our commitment to the U.S. Constitution and to the Bill of Rights, and we made a decision at that time that the appropriate time to do that would be a proclamation around Constitution Day, and so that's where this originated from.
Perfect, thank you.
With that, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. On September 17th, 1787, delegates to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia signed the U.S. Constitution, a written charter for a new and enduring federal government. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote for the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. With these words, the delegates convened at Philadelphia developed a framework that would provide balance and freedom, consider federal and state interests, and with the ratification of the Bill of Rights on December 15th, 1791, the U.S. Constitution enshrined the fundamental liberties that guarantee individual human rights and define us as Americans. Constitution Day, established by the U.S. Congress in 2005, is an opportunity for all of us to reflect on the foundations of our legal system and the rule of law we have come to know. It is a time to celebrate the rich history of our most precious founding documents. It is a time to acknowledge the ways in which it has shaped the American story and continues to inform and inspire our stories today. It is also a time to recommit ourselves to protecting those hard-fought fundamental rights so gallantly won by the founders of this great nation. Just as the Sherburne County Commissioners pledge allegiance to the flag at the beginning of each meeting, we take this opportunity to vow again today to uphold our oaths to the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Please join us in recognizing Constitution Day on September 17th, 2023.
And now we will each sign that. So Andrew's going to pass that along. And while he's doing that, we do need, this is an action item, so I would be open to a motion.
So
And-
move.
Everyone wants to.
And Chair, I'll second that.
Motion's made by Commissioner Gray, seconded by Commissioner Danielowski. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. We will just take a minute to sign the resolution as it's passed down.
My name's longer, it takes a little more.
I think the county attorney's waiting for. Okay, great. So we will move on now to item number 5.2, receive, review, and accept the auditor treasurer's monthly report for August 2023 with Ms. Diane Arnold.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So before you, I have presented my August financial report to you. That includes the August trial balance, which is on page 3, prepared by my accounting manager, Sherburne, along with the 3-page investment report prepared by my finance officer, Lorraine Rupp. So earnings for August, total year-to-date, is $1,704,949.92 compared to $789,143.44. So we're ahead of last year's by $915,000. So just to let you know, our budget for the year for 2023 was $1,100,000. So we are right now, we are over our investment earnings for what we had projected for budget by $604,949.92. So later this morning at the workshop, Lorraine Rupp will be reviewing our county investment policy with you all. So we'll go through that in a little bit more detail. On to page 3 is the general fund balance of $33,019,490.04, which is behind last year's August amount by the $5,749,812. This also includes a recorder's compliance balance of $392,843, and also includes unspent ARPA funding of the $8,745,711.49. And you can see the county website for additional details on those individual buckets for the ARPA committed project funding. Then moving on to page 7 is the functional budget to actual report that I've been including in your information for you. So that is a snapshot of the function of the expenditures and revenue to budget for 2023 as of August 31st. And this report is based on a modified accrual. So the amount that you're seeing in the investment earnings of the GASB 31 entry is for the unrealized gain on our investments. And then speaking of auditing and stuff, our 2022 audit has been completed, and the audit committee had our exit review on the 8th of September with Clifton Larson Allen here at Sherburne County Government Center. And we are looking at having our entrance audit meeting in December for 2023 reporting year. So it doesn't feel like we have a lot of break in between, but here we're starting in with the 2023. Overall, the audit went well with no material weaknesses nor significant deficiencies for the 2022 audit. You were all sent a copy of the audit report, as well as that being posted on our county website under the County Auditor Treasurers tab, and it was also published in our local newspapers for the financial statements. For the for the 2023 audit, the board has approved of purchasing debt book software in 2023, which we'll be utilizing for the implementation of GASB Statement Number 96, which is the reporting of all the IT subscription-based information on technology agreements and any of the county leases for the audit reporting. And this is effective for December 31st of 2023. Along with that pronouncement is the SAS Statement 143 also, which is accounting estimates. This is effective for December 31st of '23. This will pertain to the capital assets and pension reporting. We don't have a lot of details and stuff on this. Clifton Larson said they were going to be having a special audit team that will be working with our IDT department and going through the information to ensure that we've captured everything we have that we needed for the SAS Statement 145. And that's for that part. So that is understanding the entity and assessing the risk of material misstatements. This is also effective for December 31st of 2023. So there's a number of new pronouncements that will be effective for the 2023 audit year. Moving on to giving you a little bit of an update for the 2024 election. So myself, Carmen Schomer, Ken Seltzer, Carrie Anderson will be attending our presidential nominating primary training, which is tomorrow. And that's going to be put on by the Secretary of State's election office. So we're getting prepared and trained for the March 5th, 2024 presidential nominating primary election. Absentee voting for that election starts on the 19th of January. And we're planning on conducting in-person election trainings for the presidential nominating primary election on January 24th and the 25th here at the county government center in our Maple Rooms. And then to kind of give you a little bit of an update in the short window that we have. So the township election is to be held on Tuesday, March 12th. So it's a week later after the presidential nominating. So there's a short window in which we need to get the township election all programmed for their public accuracy testing after the results are verified and uploaded to the Secretary of State's office for the presidential nominating primary. But at this time, I would like to take a moment and to recognize one of our longtime election clerks. So Haven Township, last night at their town board, they recognized their head clerk, Penny Ryrock, which she has 52 years of serving as a head election judge for Haven Township, which is just phenomenal. I mean, it's really great. So they had a little bit of a presentation at 6:30 to 7, and I was not able to get there till after 7:30 because I had extension meeting last night, but then they had a little gathering afterwards as well. So it was really nice that they did a recognition for her at the township meeting. So I just wanted to announce that to everyone as well.
That's amazing. What was her name again?
Penny Wyrock.
With the board's permission, I could draft a congratulations letter for the chair to sign. And
That'd be great. Yes. Really good. 52 years. Wow.
So their current clerk is saying she will be available for assisting and stuff. And she said, well, maybe. So, no, it was really nice to see her. I was glad I had the opportunity to be able to do that last night. So
That's great.
that kind of concludes my report. Does
Okay.
anyone have any questions?
Any questions?
Okay. Thank you.
And so this is an action item. So what is the wish of the board?
Move to approve.
Move to approve and accept the August 2023 financial report from the Auditor Treasurer. Motion's been made by Commissioner Felber,
Madam Chair, I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Danielowski. Any other questions or comments? I just want to obviously thank your staff. It's a lot of work. It's a lot to put together, and they, both Sherilyn and Lorraine, so.
Thank you.
And
Yep.
any others that are involved, so.
No, we're glad to provide the information and stuff for you all.
Oh, yes, thanks. So there's been a motion made and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Moving on to agenda item number 5.3, consider approval of the 2024 budget for the Three Lake Improvement District. Mr. Dan Weber.
Good morning, Madam Chair,
Morning.
Commissioners. Each year, the Three Lakes Improvement District requests the county board to impose service charges to the cost proposed the proposed project cost within the Lake Improvement District. The request for 2024 is $34,408.60. There are 430 properties that would be impacted, which equates to $80.02 per property. This is actually down a little bit from 2023 when it was $149.31 per property. There's a detailed budget and impacted addresses that were included with the packet. So we'd be looking for the approval of the budget.
Okay. So I'd be open to a motion to approve and accept on the wrong page. Sorry. The 2024 budget of and assess the costs of the identified projects on benefiting properties within the Three Lakes Improvement District in the manner required by law.
So move.
Motion's made by Commissioner Gray,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, just a clarification for the record that this is a lake improvement district. They vote on this, this taxation themselves, and then the county is the mechanism by which they collect.
Correct.
So just a
Yes.
clarification on that.
Yes, with a lake improvement district is charged with that. They go through a process to become that district that comes before this board. And then they set their levy, so to speak. We codify it and comes final before this board, so.
And Madam Chair, I was just going to, the part of that process, Dan, can you basically state that they have to go around and they have to petition their residents?
Correct.
Get the okay, and it only gets passed if how much of a percentage of the residents say yes?
Commissioner Hulls, do you have that information?
I believe, off the top of my head, I believe it's 50%.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah,
The
okay,
majority.
right.
Simple-
All right, thank you.
Simple majority to be able to do that, so. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Moving on to agenda item number 5.4, consider participating in the University of Minnesota Library's Mapping Prejudice Project and approving a resolution disavowing past practice of discriminatory covenants as illegal and unenforceable. Good
Good
morning.
morning, Madam Chair and Board of Commissioners. This morning I have a twofold request for you. I would also like to let you know that I have invited several people from the Great River Covenants Project, and so in the front row or in the second row here this morning, we have Annie Larson, we also have Kristen Delegard, and we also have Darlene St. Clair. And again, they're from the Great River Covenants Project, and they'll be working closely with our office. So again, the first part of the approval that's being requested today is the memorandum of understanding, the agreement to go forward and work with them on this project. This has been approved by the county attorney's office. I'd like to note that on page 2, this agreement is not a commitment of funds of either party, and there's no cost associated with the county offices providing the records image. So again, they're going to do the hard work on this, and using an optical character recognition program, they're going to scan public deeds and look for trigger words that would indicate that there may or may not have been some discriminatory covenants filed on any abstract properties. The second part of this is the resolution that I'm seeking approval for. And briefly, it reiterates that the practice is illegal. It talks about in Minnesota legislature in 2019, they enacted statute 507.18, which permits the owners of abstract property to record an affidavit that discharges these covenants. And then the resolution also directs the recorder to record this resolution in the inclusion in the abstract tract index. It does allow for an affidavit. Again, that's a state-created document. Should some landowner decide that they want to record this against some discriminatory restrictions that may have been found on their property. I can tell you I've worked in the recorder's office a long time. I personally don't know of any on any abstract property. So if there are instances, they're going to be very minimal, extremely limited. Any questions?
Questions? Okay, so we, you said you needed 2 things from us.
Yeah.
So The first,
Actually, they're both in the same motion.
they're in the same motion, thank you. So the motion would be to approve by resolution number 091923-AD-3100, the disavowing of past practice of discriminatory covenants as illegal and unenforceable, and authorize an agreement with the University of Minnesota's libraries to participate in its mapping prejudice project.
Precisely.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I would move that we approve that as
Motion's been
read.
made by Commissioner Felber,
I'll second, Madam Chair.
seconded by Commissioner Danielowski. Any other questions or comments?
You really should seem unnecessary at this point in time, but I mean, if there are already documents out there that need to be cleaned up, it's nice that you guys have a project to get it done.
Yes, appreciate that. So, hearing no comments or questions, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thank you.
Great, thank
Thanks for
you.
joining us for the meeting today, and for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on now to agenda item number 5.5. Consider and approve resolution. This is regarding our preliminary levy. So turning this over to Administrator Messelt and County Assistant Administrator Dan Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. So the requested action today is to approve the preliminary levy for 2024, and as part of that, effectively look at a preliminary budget that utilizes that levy. The county board can lower the levy, but it cannot raise the levy after today, and it has to be certified as the final levy by the end of the calendar year. Just a little bit of summary. The county board this year embarked on an extensive budget process. Excuse me. Back actually starting discussions as early as February and earnest discussions in March. We really worked on three different looks at the budget. The first was developing a base budget or a status quo budget. So we knew what it would take to continue operations into 2024. We then also looked at opportunities to make efficiencies, reductions, or consolidations where they made sense, and we'll obviously continue to do that, but really took a focused look at that with the department heads. And then finally, we looked at investment opportunities or areas of priority that the department directors wanted you to evaluate. Based upon those discussions and meetings, the board had a final discussion a couple of weeks ago and gave direction to county staff to develop a budget with a not to exceed of a 3.5% increase in the levy. Driving that really comes down to a couple key points. First of all is, like everything else, personnel, materials, and energy costs are hitting the county. I do like to remind folks that when you see gas over $4 a gallon, we're paying that as well. So it's not something we're immune from. Labor market, which continues to challenge us for quality staff, both recruiting and retaining. Growing population in the county, which is in need of services, but also noting a growing number of constructed properties, which requires additional services as well. So it's not just the people, but as we get more built out, county services come into play. Those services also include new mandates that came into play in the last several years. Specifically, we've noted them in the areas of public safety and in public health and human services. And then finally, a decision by the county board to continue its investment in local parks and trails, and perhaps more importantly, in all of its public works infrastructure, roads and bridges. And behind that, of course, is maintaining our own facilities here at the government center and elsewhere. Staff was able to take the board direction and, in fine-tuning this, bring back to you today actually a proposed levy increase of 3.25%, so lower than the 3.5%. I would note historically the average for the last decade has been about a 3.11% increase in the levy. We're excited also that that levy increase, while it's never ideal, is reflected or mitigated by almost $173 million in new construction, which is new opportunity for tax to be spread out against those new construction activities. Also that the actual tax base in the county, including the new construction, is seeing almost an 8% increase. So while the levy is increasing, the overall tax rate continues to decline significantly here in the county. More importantly, when we look at a typical home, with the average property now in Sherburne County cresting $355,000, we are looking at a proposed increase of about $4 a month. That's roughly $1,300 a year in property taxes to the county. Now, while you and I can say $4 a month isn't a lot, the reality is we're asking effectively for $50 a year from every home in the county. So we need to justify that and defend that, and I think the budget that we put together does that quite well. Finally, in your consideration today, I did want to publicly thank your leadership in having extensive budget discussions this year, the department heads who put extra work into it and hopefully brought you several options to consider, our auditor treasurer, Diane, who always keeps us honest, as well as our attorney who keeps us from not being dishonest. So, and Christy in our office who really helps behind the scenes, but perhaps most importantly, Dan, who led this effort again, despite the plan that we were going to transition this and I'd take the helm. But for circumstances that none of us had control over, Dan shepherded this to you today, and I want to thank him publicly for that. Last but not least, though, I do think we also need to thank our citizens and our taxpayers. They entrust us with this process. They entrust us with the public funds. And as your lead staff person, I would say I'm actually proud with the work we did this year in developing this budget. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bruce, for providing that backdrop. So what is the desired action of the board?
Move to approve.
Motion's made by Commissioner Gray to approve resolution number 091923-AD 3099, certifying the preliminary 2024 property tax levy in the amount of $60,355,133.
Madam Chair, I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Danielowski. Any questions or comments?
I do have one. I just want to,
Commissioner Danielowski.
thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank everybody for all their hard work. Doing budgets and levy is never easy, but we are a service organization that is made up of a lot of really good people that work for us to provide those services to our county. And I can't thank them enough for the hard work and what they do to do it, and they do an excellent job. And so a lot of this is geared around the cost to have employees, and we're lucky to have the employees that we do have.
Okay. Any others?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Hulse.
if you'll indulge me for a moment. So I just have a statement. It is not my nature to publicly criticize a decision once it has been made. From my first days as a young naval officer, I was taught that you go into the wardroom or the boardroom and have healthy, often pointed debate. But when a decision is made, you walk out and speak with one voice. But that is not how government works. We are required by law to have our disagreements in public. I will also say that I have the utmost respect for my fellow board members and the staff of this county. They are honest people with the best of intentions. That does not, however, preclude me from having deep reservations about this budget, as uncomfortable as it is, I must express those today. I've heard this budget called a moral compass, and I think that is true. Not because of which budgets receive fundings, but because property tax is the most immoral of all taxes. It is immoral because it is a tax on an unrealized capital gain, meaning there is no revenue stream from which the homeowner can pay this tax. Not only is it immoral, it is regressive. It hurts the most vulnerable in our county, the elderly and the poor. We worked very hard for months to come up with a budget that I thought did an excellent job of balancing some key priorities of the county with the needs of the taxpayer, and did so by keeping property taxes essentially flat. Keeping in mind that those same taxpayers are being hit with one of the largest tax increases in state history, thanks to St. Paul. And yes, that included a wheelage tax increase of $10 per year, but I agreed to that increase on the promise that some of those revenues would be used to lower property tax to help offset that increase. Then after we voted to approve that increase, and at the 11th hour, additional budget item arose, which should have neither been new or a surprise, that caused all of that work to be for nothing. While I do not blame any department head for vigorously advocating for their department, It is not the job of this board to rubber stamp every spending request that comes before it. Rather, it is the role of this board, or any executive board, to ask tough questions and demand good answers and accountability. This board is vested with the awesome responsibility to ensure every taxpayer dime is spent wisely for the good of the residents of the county and stretched to its very limit. This county, in my opinion, has lost sight of the difference between wants and needs. When everything is a priority, nothing is. I've heard it said many times on this board over the last few months, it's only another $25 per household. Yes, except $25 here and $25 there adds up to thousands of dollars. This county doesn't earn this money because it came up with some novel good or service that the public is clamoring to purchase. It is taken by force, whether or not the individual can afford it. This county has forgotten that fundamental truth. In my opinion, no one should be proud of this budget. Not the department heads and certainly not this board. I realize my no vote on this budget isn't going to make a bit of difference. It takes a majority. But it is my fervent hope that this winter, this building is filled at the Truth in Taxation meeting and that we all, every one of us, both the board and the department heads, really listen to the impact raising taxes yet again has on the citizens of Sherburne County. And I look forward to our explanation as when has happened last November, an elderly homeowner asked why, because he can no longer afford his property taxes, must he sell his home? Because I, for one, cannot justify it. Thank you.
Other comments?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Felber.
I was going to speak longer on this, but I think Commissioner Hulse covered it very well. I do definitely agree with Commissioner Hulse on this issue.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I would like to thank the staff and the administration for their hard work in coming up with this preliminary number. And that's just what it is. It's a number that what it does is affect the lives of our residents and our county employees. It provides resources to our valuable employees to provide the high level of service our residents need and require. We as commissioners are charged with providing those services, and by supporting this very minimal increase to the levy, we show we care about our residents and our employees and value them more than just a number at the bottom of a spreadsheet. This increase is lower than last year and on par with our 10-year historical average. When doing the simple math, and I understand what Mr. Hull is saying, but about 40,000 properties, this equates to about $50 per parcel, an increase on average well within reason for what it provides. Most of all, not all townships and their electorate have already voted to increase their own levies themselves anywhere from 3 to 6%. Supporting this levy as a commissioner shows that I care about our most vulnerable residents, our veterans, law enforcement, the safety of our traveling public on roads, and the retention of our dedicated and professional employees.
Okay. Any other comments? So this was a process that, as Administrator Messelt said, we started in February, coming into the year with us being a new board with 3 commissioners. I recognized the need to really make sure we did a deep dive into just what it takes to fund our county services and what we are asked to do from this on the state and the federal level with much of what we do. I believe the process was good. We all learned a lot. Difficult process at times. I appreciate our staff and all they put into it, and feel strongly that we've come up with a levy moving into next year that will support our staff and support our citizens in a good way. So I'm proud of the work that we've done, and recognize that that's not shared by everyone along the dais. That is hard as a chair. I like us all to, what if some people say the best meeting you can have is when everyone goes away not happy? So with this budget, we all didn't get what we wanted. There were board members that wanted a lot more. And I believe there were board members that wanted a lot less. And I tried to find a balance in the middle for that, and I believe that's what we've achieved with this. So with that, any other comments?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Danielowski.
Thank you. I just had one other comment. I mean, I don't think any of us can disagree on how the property tax system works. We unfortunately do not have that ability to change that system. That has to be a conversation that happens down at the state. And I think to impress upon that need to look at that, people should be, should be calling and reaching out to basically say, there needs to be a better way to do this. And until that way is found, this is what we have to deal with, and this is how our system works. So if you want to advocate for a change, it needs to happen at the state where they're the ones that can make the change.
It's a tough system, and it's probably the worst part of our job for all of us. As I said, this board was incredibly divided going into this. We had a lot higher levies from some and a lot lowers that people indicated. I worked hard, and I believe staff really worked hard to find that middle ground, and I believe that's what we're presenting today. Any other comments? I believe we'll take a roll call on this, starting with Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
Commissioner Felber.
Nay.
The chair votes aye. Commissioner Danielowski.
Aye.
Commissioner Halls.
Nay.
The vote, can't think of the word. Thank you. The vote passes 3-2. Moving on now to agenda item number 5.6. Consider and approve amendments to County Park Regulations Ordinance number 227 to prohibit cannabis use. So we're moving into our cannabis discussions now, the next two items. There have been a lot of work on this in the last months. Thank you, staff. So I'll turn this over to Administrator Messelt and County Attorney Kathy Haney.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, and I'll turn this over to Kathy for leading into this, and Jennifer for the conversations. Just appreciate the amazing work they did on this.
And Madam Chair and Commissioners, I would love to be able to take credit for writing this ordinance, but I cannot. It actually goes to Ms. Pim of my office, who's been working in conjunction with the Minnesota County Attorneys Association on this matter. The first ordinance that is before you is an ordinance that would prohibit cannabis use in the county parks. And when I talk about cannabis use, it would not only be cannabis, but it would also include hemp-derived products. And so there would be, the proposed ordinance before you is that there would be no smoking or use of either cannabis products or hemp-derived products on any county parks or trails. So that would also include such as the Great Northern Trail. The sentiment behind that, right, wrong, or indifferent, is that we want our parks to be welcoming to family. And in order to do so, we believe that this is the appropriate way of doing so. And we'll stand for any questions that you may have on that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Halls.
So, as I understand it, Elk River's ordinance that they passed is less restrictive than this is, primarily around the use of edibles specifically. So my question is, if there's part of a park system that falls inside a city limit, how does that work?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, in this particular case, since it's county-owned, county controls, and we have the ability to set our own regulation. So if we have a county trail, say that's in the city of Elk River, it trumps.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I mean, I think that's part of what's nice about how you guys put this together. It's really well-crafted ordinance. It's really nice. Is that people will be able to use with other local ordinances, cannabis products as they choose, but within our parks. We're just going to keep our parks set up so that everybody can enjoy them without interference from people using not just cannabis products, but alcohol and other things that tend to contribute to people altering their behavior in a negative fashion. So I think it's good.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Danielowski.
And I do support this. I've heard from a great number of people and communities that really want to see the protection of those county parks to not be exposed to anything that people can do in their own homes, but not do it in a public space and impact other people that are trying to enjoy that space. So I'm supportive of this.
I kind of concur with what Commissioner Danielowski said and what Commissioner Felber said. I support this in that aspect.
Okay, so we need action on this item.
I would make a motion to approve.
Okay, so there's been a motion made to approve the amending Park Regulations Ordinance 269 prohibiting the use of cannabis and hemp in county parks.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Felber, moved by Commissioner Halls. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, this particular piece is just for our county-owned properties. We'll address the next one that's coming up for the other areas.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. On to agenda item number 5.7.
And just a real quick primer before Jen jumps in here. I handed out to you, so the first one you saw was the one you just passed. The next two you see, there's a couple different versions for you to consider, and we'll walk you through those. But just for clarification for Commissioner Halls, the ordinance applies not only to edibles, but also hemp-derived consumer products. So that would be consumables, such as a THC-infused drink. So I assumed you meant that, but for clarity. And then I would note that during the meeting, I did receive a text from the city of Elk River, and they would request that the board consider, and Jennifer will highlight this for you, consider the possibility of opting out if the county goes more restrictive, of allowing Elk River to remain with their existing ordinance. And we'll highlight that for you, but I just wanted to note the real-time communication.
Okay, so Ms. Jennifer Pym, thanks for being with us and your work on this.
Certainly. There are 3 different drafts in front of you. And this was crafted in conjunction with communications with other jurisdictions and utilizing the statutes. To start with, what we've done here is we have looked to the Public Health Authority, which is under State Statute 145A. That is a county-wide authority, and it does allow counties to designate or define certain areas which are not included. And so what you'll see in these ordinances is that we have identified the fact that we have 2 cities which are not wholly within the Sherburne County boundaries. And so as far as jurisdiction in Section 3, it simply identifies that those 2 cities, specifically Princeton and St. Cloud, would not be included within the bounds of this county ordinance. Because they have other counties that they're dealing with, it might become quite confusing to pick and choose and to determine what they would need to do there. So to alleviate that, we've simply excluded those 2 cities. The remaining issue, I think, regarding jurisdiction for this court then would be the city of Elk River, which we've now heard has made a request that if there's a difference in what's being prohibited and not, that it sounds like they would like to be able to apply their ordinance as opposed to the county. So they'd be looking for, I guess, an exception for them as well. You will see reference to that in the 3rd draft that I sent. It has a green highlight on the front. And the way we incorporated that was to simply identify that we were also excluding cities with populations over 25,000, which my understanding is that that would only pull in Elk River in addition to the multi-county cities of St. Cloud and Princeton. So that's where we start with the authority and the jurisdiction regarding this public spaces ordinance. This has been discussed previously, and the new state statute, which is 342, as well as the changes to statute 145, which is the controlled substance statute, allow for local jurisdictions, including counties, to limit or prohibit use in their public places. It allows prohibition of all of the different types of products, so the cannabis flower, the cannabis products, the lower potency hemp edibles, and the hemp-derived consumer products. And so one of the other issues for the board to consider today is which type of products. The first draft ordinance simply is referring to basically the smoking and vaping of the cannabis products. That was consistent with what the city of Elk River had done in their public places. They were still allowing for the use of the edible products and the drinks. And so the first draft reflects that. The other two with the yellow highlights, they pull in those edible products and the drinks, and they prohibit the use of those in the public places as well. And so that's the difference between the three. The first one includes Elk River, but allows for the use of the edibles. The second one with just the yellow highlights also includes Elk River, but prohibits the edibles and the drinks. And then the third draft excludes the city of Elk River, but still prohibits the use of all the products, including the edibles. So I wanted to present you with actual language for those three different options, also knowing that you might have other questions or requests. So that's kind of the summary of these. Did individuals have questions?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Hulse.
Is there when we had first started talking about these, there was also a question of age restriction because the vagueness of the state statute. Has that been incorporated in here, or is there an opportunity to incorporate that?
In these public place ordinances, we did not pull that in part because the new law, it provides specific provision which says that the local governmental units can prohibit the use in public places. It doesn't address at all age restrictions. It's just any age in these public places. If the local government's prohibiting it, it applies to any age. And so, yes, there have been conversations about, can you do a standalone type of an ordinance regarding underage use or possession in places? What I can tell the board is that the new cannabis law does prohibit individuals under the age of 21 from using, possessing, or transporting the different products, the flower, cannabis, lower potency hemp edibles, or hemp-derived products. It also prohibits the smoking or vaping in any location where it could be inhaled by minors. While prohibited, the new cannabis law doesn't set penalties. There is conversation amongst other county attorneys and other jurisdictions that points to an existing Minnesota statute which provides that if an act's prohibited by statute but doesn't set a specific penalty, then that act would be a petty misdemeanor. And so there's been some conversation about, well, could you look to the state statute? It prohibits it. You're not supposed to do it if you're underage, and then tie into this general penalty provision. So I think there's some jurisdictions that are considering that. The new cannabis law is silent as to whether local governments can regulate by way of ordinance the underage possession and use. And so that leads me to think that if a county or a city wanted to look to enacting an ordinance specifically for the underage use or possession, they would be able to do that. The maximum penalty for that would be a misdemeanor, which is one step up from the petty under this sort of generalized state penalty provision. And so that's kind of a lot of information, but one of the reasons that we kept this public place only was because the new statute very specifically carves out the option for local governments to do the public place prohibition. We weren't sure if trying to pull in underage language would complicate this in a way that might make it problematic to enforce, and could deal with that separately. Did that answer some of the question?
It does. Does that mean we would potentially be looking at a standalone ordinance to specifically address the age question?
I think that's an option. I also think it's an option to communicate with law enforcement in other jurisdictions to see, did we want to look to that general state statute, which taps into a petty misdemeanor? I don't know if there are other communities, counties, cities that are trying that already or not, but I know that's been discussed.
So, Madam Chair, my question to you is, would that be another workshop? Would that be, how would we proceed to answer that question?
Administrator Messelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Commissioner Hulse, since the cannabis group is up and working, what I'd suggest is the board could refer that particular question to the cannabis group. And I was also derelict in not mentioning to you, we do plan on also addressing zoning and land use with the working groups, and we'll be returning to you with thoughts on that as well. So you could add that to our charge, and I know the attorney will correct me.
And could you identify who's all in that cannabis work group?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the individuals that were part of the work group, we brought together both the city representatives as well as the county or the township representatives to get feedback from all of them. We actually held those in 2 different groups, so we're getting input from those. The other issue that I think, I mean, we're going to talk about zoning, but the other issue that I think we should also talk about is, do we want to cap the number of businesses? I think that that's a question that you probably want the work group to kind of wrestle with. And also to see if the county's direction is for us to assume, if asked by either townships and or cities, the regulation or the compliance checks process. So I think we've got more steps to go in this process.
And then to answer your question, staff-wise, Substance Use Prevention Coalition, Public Health, Community Corrections, Health and Human Services, the Sheriff's Office, the County Attorney's Office are all on the, staffing that, those 2 groups.
And Bruce, are you part of that also?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so administration. So that gives us
Oh, and
reminds us.
I apologize, zoning and land use as well.
Okay,
Yep.
so almost all departments are involved because this covers all departments. So I believe we have many more steps to identify or things to be discussed going further. So we charge the group with that to start with. And if the board would like workshops on each of those or whatever makes sense going forth. But
Although we probably should have Diana there, because even though we're not going to make money, it's going to cost us money. So we may have to have the auditor there too. So.
Right.
true.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think it's kind of like we're trying to take care of an elephant, and we're taking it a piece at a time. And I think right now, this piece that is in front of us is what we're looking to make a decision on for these options. And I do agree that we need to have some workshops and going forward, more discussions that the cannabis group is going to have with all the other pieces of this elephant.
Madam Chair, this is taking on just the one aspect, and it makes sense to do that at this time. This is very workable. This 3rd version that lets Elk River have their exception if they choose, it seems like it's really well written again. And it seems like it's very enforceable. All the other questions can be dealt with over the next 2 years. I mean, we're basically, you can't tool down the street drinking a 5th of vodka. You can't tool down the street using marijuana. It's all that simple. So I think we start here and then work on the rest of it.
Is that a motion?
Madam Chair, before we move on that, I just want a clarification on this for the public. I know when the Elk River, not state, City Council, well, the ordinance came out. When the Elk River, there was some confusion over whether it covered Elk River-owned land only or whether it also included places of public accommodation. Just want to clarify on this, that this is broad. And I support it 100%, but we need to make it clear, we've already covered county-owned parks, but this includes all public-owned property as well as areas of public accommodation. So For the record, if we could have someone define what areas of public accommodation means, that way we have it clear for the public when we pass this.
Certainly, thank you, Commissioner. So I think I'll probably just read through this, so we have this verbally on the record here. So we're talking about public places, which includes any outdoor area or indoor area where they're privately or publicly owned, to which the public have access by right of invitation expressed or implied. Includes but is not limited to theaters, restaurants, bars, food establishments, places licensed to sell intoxicating liquor, wine, or malt beverages, retail businesses, gyms, common areas and buildings, public shopping areas, auditoriums, arenas, other places of public accommodation, public transportation, including a conveyance that any person holds out to transport individuals for hire, sidewalks, streets, or rights-of-way, lakes or navigable waterways or boats, and place of public accommodation means a business or a refreshment, entertainment, recreation, or transportation facility of any kind whose goods, services, facilities, privileges, advantages, or accommodations are extended, offered, sold, or otherwise made available to the public. And then this also includes parks, and the county owned parks, fairgrounds, any county-owned leased property. And so the areas that it's prohibited in is both the public places and the place of public accommodations. That does exclude private residences, including a person's curtilage or yard, including an ice shelter that's properly licensed or inside a fully enclosed cabin on a boat that's designed as living quarters, or private property not generally accessible by the public, unless the person who owns that explicitly prohibits the consumption of the cannabis products, or on the premises of an establishment or an event that is licensed to permit on-site consumption. So those are the different locations, what's allowed, the areas that are allowed and not allowed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we are ready to act on this. I have a process comment. So I have a few different numbers here. The last one I said that we were passing was ordinance 269.
And I apologize. My apologies, Chairwoman. I have to point out here that I have highlighted on section 5 some language which I have omitted to add back in the lower potency hemp edibles, which I've added at the top of the ordinance. And in section 1, I have neglected to add that into section 5. I've removed the exception for it. And so if I could clarify and correct for the board here, the language under section 5 in the third option here should say, a person shall not use cannabis flower, comma, cannabis products, comma, lower potency hemp edibles, comma, or hemp-derived consumer products in a public place or place of public accommodation.
Okay.
My apologies for missing those words. They are very important.
Thank you, Jennifer. And then back to the numbering thing. In item number 5.6, said that we were passing ordinance number 269. On our agenda, it says 227. Does this matter?
Yeah, we should probably redo that. So
Okay.
what I would suggest is, why don't we do a motion to reconsider for the record? And who made the original motion to approve the Parks one? Keisha, do you have it in your notes?
So item 5.6, where the chair mentioned 269 versus 227, the motion was made by Commissioner Halls and seconded by Commissioner Felber.
Actually, I apologize, I stand corrected. The administration assigns the numbers, so it's a non-substantive error.
Okay.
So you can just, at this point, motion to approve an ordinance
Okay, without a number.
without a number to regulate adult cannabis use in public places to mitigate threats to public health as amended at today's meeting.
Okay, I just recognize some of those little
Yeah,
things
I
can.
really
throw us
apologize. We
off.
missed the numbers.
Okay, Commissioner
That would be the
Halls.
sheet with the green blotch
With the green blotch.
I would move.
Commissioner Halls has one more
I have
question.
one more clarifying question. I'm sorry. The only question that I have is on CBD products. Is that considered a hemp-derived product?
I believe they are outside of both the new cannabis law and the previously existing hemp edibles that passed last year. I believe the CBD products are completely outside of those two. And so these would not apply to those CBD products.
Yeah, and that was my question, is because those are non-intoxicating. There's entirely different use for those. I just didn't want us to be accidentally restricting that.
Yes, that's my understanding, Commissioner.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
So I would make a motion to approve as amended. Oh, I'm sorry,
No, it's fine. Go right ahead.
with the exception of or city with a population of over 25,000 included in the,
Commissioner Halls moves.
so that it's
So
included.
this is the one with the green block on it, the third document that Jennifer provided us with. And Commissioner Felber seconds.
Yes.
Okay,
And just to clarify, as amended means with Jennifer's amendment on section 5. Okay, thank you.
any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, just to clarify, thank you. I heard Commissioner Hulse say with the exception. I wanted to make sure that he is not excluding.
A friendly amendment to my motion.
Yeah.
I would move to approve the version that includes or a city with a population over 25,000 as amended in section 5 as well.
And Commissioner Felber, is that your understanding?
Yes, that's
Yes.
the way I understood it
Okay.
first time.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I did have one real quick comment.
Commissioner Danielowski.
Thank you. This has been discussed a lot and have had a lot of feedback from the various jurisdictions that really want the county to do this. They want us to be the one that implements this, obviously besides the ones that requested an exclusion. But they want us to basically take care of this township, city level, and I think they're always going to want us to be the enforcer of compliance checks. So just wanted to say that's what I've heard back from the people that I've been in contact with.
Yes, that's also what I've heard, that they would like us to take the lead on this. And just want to acknowledge that Big Lake is here in the room with us today, so thanks for joining us. It's a big issue across the county that we're all dealing with, and I appreciate that our staff has really reached out to our cities and townships so we can kind of communicate and know what's going on with this as we move forward. And there are other chapters to come, as you've heard, so.
One real quick, just to clarify too, that this way we have our law enforcement agencies in our county, for the most part, they know what they're dealing with if they come in to help another agency. And we're trying to be as the same across the board as best we can. So that's our message that I heard back too.
Anything else?
Well, I just think, for me personally, I think it wasn't up to us, the legalization of cannabis, but I think the regulation is going to fall on us. I think, and this is just, we're in the infancy of doing that. I think from a personal standpoint, I'm more concerned about the long-term ramifications of this from a health standpoint. I think those questions were never addressed from the get-go, and I think those are some of the outstanding things that this law and the cannabis legalization are going to, on future generations, have got some concerns moving forward. Totally.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance to regulate adult cannabis use in public places to mitigate threats to the public health. So we will vote on that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Moving on to agenda item number 6, that of Commissioner Correspondence, Committee Reports, Upcoming Meeting, Future Agenda Items. Why don't we start with Commissioner Halls?
Yeah.
Or no?
For one day, I wanted you to start on the other side. No,
Okay.
it's fine. No, it's
I
fine.
can, I can.
No, it's fine. We over the last couple of weeks have been really quite busy. We had continuation meetings of the Mississippi One Watershed Plan, where we're still working through what that organization and what that entity is going to look like. The county attorney's offices of the various counties have been working outstanding together, and really that's where those discussions are taking place right now. I went to the grand reopening of the McDonald's in Elk River last Tuesday. It was nice to visit with, when you have all of this road construction in a concentrated place, it really affects the local businesses. They took advantage of the opportunity to do a complete tear down and rebuild a brand new McDonald's where the old one stood. And it was really an interesting story, and it's an entire change in technology that they're using. It's incredibly automated in the kitchen. So I found that very interesting, and it was good to meet with some. The chamber was there as well, and so it was nice to meet with some of those folks. And then the big deal that we all attended was the AMC policy briefing last week. That was very good, very informative. I sat in on the government policies subcommittee, and there's a lot of work being done there. And then finally, last night, met with Mayor Dietz and State Administrator and Cal, can't remember Cal's last name.
Portner.
Last night to talk about specifically the cannabis issue and make sure that we had alignment between the two entities. So that's my couple of weeks.
Okay, and the AMC conference is on our agenda later for workshops, so we can go more into depth in that later on, so. Rayanne?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Attended on September 7th, the Mississippi One Watershed, One Plan. Commissioner Hulls already did an update on that. On September 8th, I attended our Serve Big in Big Lake at the schools. This is a committee that gets together to have a very good discussion on how we are handling homelessness, especially at the level of school age, and basically working together on trying to make sure that we're really coordinating those efforts and doing things that are going to get us in a direction that hopefully our homeless population and what they're dealing with at the school level for children in the school has doubled. It went from 9 last year to roughly about 18 this year. And there's a feeling that it is about, the affordable housing issues and how hard it is to find housing. And so that always great discussions there. And then on September 12th, attended the Big Lake Early Childhood Advisory Meeting, and they're again dealing with the young people in our school district and stuff, and how engaging the families in creating a solid base for helping educate how to raise young children. And then also did the NACO 13th NACO EDA meeting. That was very informative too. They're very much focusing on affordable housing across the country. And the AMC Fall Conference, which we will go into. I'm on the Transportation Committee, and we picked our top 3 priorities to go to the legislator with. That was the end.
Okay, I attended the NACO Health Policy Steering Committee meeting. We're just forming our new year, kind of. I'm vice chair for one of the subcommittees on behavioral health. Along with Veteran Service Office, went to the Fremont Villages, the new care facility in Zimmerman, to talk veterans, and just toured the place again. Central Minnesota Council on Aging met, had a community adult mental health initiative meeting. That's 4 counties combined to try to streamline services for those individuals that live with serious and persistent mental illness. Central Minnesota Jobs and Training met a couple Fridays ago, and that's a whole morning from 9 till 2 on community and government relations. And then we hop into our workforce council, and then we had a joint powers meeting also. With that, I've mentioned before, the Community and Government Relations Committee is hosting a speaker with the QPR training. September is Suicide Prevention Month, and with many of us having been affected by people taking their lives by suicide, either in your family or from friends, this is a training called Question, Persuade, and Respond that the Community Government Relations Group is hosting. It's this Friday, 9 to 11. It's virtual. If you need more information on it, let me know. We have about 150 plus people signed up. I've heard the trainer is excellent, very sensitive topic, but very beneficial to know these ways to possibly help someone prevent that. There was a Princeton Airport meeting I attended a Nonprofits United meeting up in Princeton with Kat Sarf from the United Way. She's trying to gather nonprofits in our area. That was very well attended. Great River Regional Library, I serve on the collections subcommittee. That work is winding down as we make sure our policies are sound and solid to serve our communities. AMC Fall Policy, that'll be later. In the middle of that, we had a MICA board meeting that I hopped on. So MICA met, just talked about what happened with the last legislative session and what we're looking at going into the new one. And that's it for me. Commissioner Felber. Greg.
Well, my first couple are quite related, the Towards Zero Death Committee and the Safe Roads Coalition. Big thing that we're looking at this time of the year, obviously, is slow down for school zones and be cautious around buses and obey the stop arms. Those are really, really critical things. We're still having issues with that. They are getting more cameras put on the buses, which should help overall. From the fatalities are still down. The same factors are there: speed, seat belts, and distraction. Sherburne County is fortunately still aggressively prosecuting people who are involved in traffic-related fatalities if there's been a crime committed, and that is, I think, a really good idea. I mean, we need to do that. And the Safe Roads Coalition is looking for more opportunities to engage the public using the seatbelt convincer, which is a device that stops very rapidly, get people the idea of what would be like to, if you weren't wearing your seatbelt, and then the Persuader rollover simulator. So if anybody's got any sort of activities they'd like to see those at, that might be something you could do. I sat in on the MCIT info on family leave. That's really extensive. There's a whole lot of it going on. Really, it just looks like it's going to be very, very expensive to implement and will particularly be burdensome for small businesses. For the Violent Offender Task Force, the Lakes Area Drug Investigative Division will not be joining VOTEF, but VOTEF was voted to be the Central Minnesota Violent Offender Task Force, was voted the Public Safety Team of the Year award by the Greater St. Cloud Public Safety Foundation. So congratulations to those guys that actually make that thing work. On the NACO Public Safety Call, they're trying to work on legislation to get fentanyl test strips to be more easily available as xylazine test strips so that people could do that. Right now, it's illegal to possess those. So they're trying to get a bill to decriminalize possession of the strips. And then they're also working on simplifying disaster relief legislation to make it easier to apply and more streamlined, to get more force FEMA to follow through with previous directives about streamlining process with local government. On 9/12, I went to the Sherburne County Community Corrections Advisory Board. Most things are going well there. I'm actually quite disheartened to see that we are going to be reducing our supervision of lower level offenders. We're not going to be doing as much drug testing and alcohol testing on people who are being released, even if ordered by the courts. I find that quite disturbing. I agree with the county attorney's office in that space. This is kind of part of a trend, I think, statewide to actually reduce our supervision of offenders overall. And I do not agree with that. I think it's important to make people accountable for their own actions. The Sherburne County CEC meeting I went to last night. We have openings in District 1 and 2. The fair went well with over 700 kids participating, and we had a bunch of kids go to state. As far as the AMC conference, we're going to talk about that in depth later on, but the one thing I will mention about that is that we found out that the state is now reducing, again, federal sentencing and reducing the time that people spend on their federal felony, not federal felony, but there's the time that they're spending on their felony convictions. Rather than penalizing those who don't follow their programs while incarcerated in the state prison system, they're going to, instead of, if you get, say, the example actually given was if 2 people get 100 months, and one person follows their program, the other person does not follow their program, the person who follows their program will have their sentence reduced to 50 months instead of 67, but the person who doesn't follow their program will still get let out at 67 months. It seems if you have some sort of discrepancy there, the objective would be to keep the non-complying offender should be kept in prison for the full 100 months. But we'll talk about that more later.
It's always challenging to follow Greg because it's so long and detailed, but September 8th, I had the opportunity to tour the Sherco Solar 1 project, which is moving along. I drive by it just about every day. The substation is going to be completed in June prior to all of the panels being put on, so they'll be ready to transmit power. I attended the AMC policy conference. We'll talk about that later. I also attended the CEC meeting by Zoom the other night with Greg.
Can one of you tell me what CEC stands for our public?
Community Extension Committee. Community Extension Committee.
We should say that.
It's our extension committee.
Extension, Minnesota Extension.
Yep.
So now we have to be able to acknowledge our acronyms?
Well, I just think for the public, it's important to.
Yes, we should be more detailed.
I don't know
All
what
that detail and no good facts.
Yeah, and no known facts, yeah.
For stumping you.
That's fine. Went to the Haven Township Board meeting, actually attended the Penny Wyrock contribution for her. 52 years of what she was doing, it's just phenomenal. And she did say that she would be around to help, like I'm sure a good public servant, she would be there if they needed her. Multiple constituent phone calls and issues, and on a real lighter note, the second grandson was born Saturday morning, 8 pounds, 1 ounce, 21 inches long. So,
Congratulations.
Cool.
That's great. Good. Okay, we are a little ahead of ourselves, so I realized we didn't schedule a break-in. So I'm going to recommend a break, and then when we come back, we will recess our regular meeting and open our Community Health Board meeting. So it is now 10:35. Let's take 10 minutes. 10:45 back for our Community Health Board meeting. We are going to resume our meeting. And with that, we will recess our regular meeting and open our Community Health Board meeting with Ms. Nicole Ruhoff. Let me get my notes in front of me. So the first item is to approve the Community Health Board meeting minutes from May 16th. Actually, no, back it up. How about approving the regular meeting proposed agenda? I need a motion to do that.
I motion that we approve the Health and Human or the Health Board agenda.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Felber,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Gray. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The item number 2.2 under that would be to review and approve the minutes from May 16th, 2023.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Halls,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. And now we will receive the Community Health Services, Health Board update. Community Health Board update, okay.
And good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. I don't have a long update today, but I'll certainly get started. For division updates, we do have 2 upcoming conferences that are specifically around community health. And so next week, the statewide health is SHAC, Statewide Community Health Services Advisory Committee, that acronym that always troubles us, is set for next week. And we're really going to be talking about transforming public health and then also touching on some of our funding recommendations for some of those outstanding legislative grants.
And that, just so you know, is going, Gary Gray is going to be attending that, and Nicole will be at that. I am unable to make that, so.
Correct. And then secondly, the Local Public Health Association Conference is coming up in November. And that one, the theme is the power of communication in public health leadership. So a couple of days filled with some really exciting conferences and sessions that I think can really dive into some of the world of public health. Last day to register for that is October 11th, and that's in Breezy Point. And then just a couple of personnel updates. We did have 1 vacancy for a community health specialist earlier this spring, and we have split that into 3 part-time positions. And as of this time, 2 of them have been offered. One is actually starting next week, so the nutrition educator offered and starting next week. Public service has been offered, and we are just waiting to go through the process. And we did have a top candidate for the community health coordinator, but there was some life circumstances that changed last minute and they weren't able to accept the position. So that one's still open and we're looking to fill. We've had a few nurses on leave and expected one back this week and then November. So we are making do. Our staff are doing a great job kind of picking up those duties in the meantime. Touched on this just a minute ago, but there are still a couple of outstanding funding opportunities for public health. So there was legislation passed in 2023. So the Public Health Emergency Preparedness, a large sum of money was proposed and approved. And there is a funding group currently that's working on a formula to present to the Commissioner of Health here at the end of the month at the SHAC retreat. And so that will be hopefully approved, and then we'll go through the process so that can be awarded. And the same thing for foundational public health responsibilities, another sum of funds appropriated out, funding group talking through what would make the most sense to cover both our metro and rural communities for community health board activities and what that looks like. So hopefully we'll have some answers about what that looks like fairly soon, but we are very excited. We have not had appropriations like this for quite some time other than COVID. Just a few updates from our units. So WIC, and I did not miss this acronym. So Women, Infants, and Children. We are back in person for many of those appointments. So between August 8th and September 12th, there were 215 participants in the building. So much more traffic than we had seen for the last few years. Most of them needed to have measurements as part of their certification, but some did just prefer to come in, and we've been open to that for the past year. There were 375 phone appointments completed. 192 needed those measurements in lab, and a third of those did come and did not have those. So there was a couple of options that folks could do for that. They could get those measurements from their healthcare provider, and they could have joined or participated in a lab-only appointment here at the Government Center or 2 of our St. Cloud locations on the bus at Cashwise or at CMCEO, which is a community empowerment agency in St. Cloud. So about a third didn't fill that, so we had to only give them a few months of benefits, and they have to complete that and come back. But the rest were able to get those labs completed and were issued their benefits for the full period. I think overall, it's been really great to see participants back in person. The quality of our interactions are certainly different than a phone appointment to talk about nutrition and health, so we're excited to have that happen. Just a little bit of our public health unit, more did you know? So when our home visiting nurses are out working with families, it's about a span of 2 years, 2+ years if we reach them early in pregnancy. And just a list of some of the assessments that they might complete when they're working with a family. It can be for a parent or caregiver, or it can be for the child in particular. So we really do look at a range of concerns and issues, make some goals, monitor progress, but really have some evidence to help us say, is what we're doing making a difference? So if we're intervening early with someone who may have early symptoms of depression, how does that come out later in our visits? Have they found the appropriate resources? Are those things stable? So I just think it's a really great kind of snapshot of what happens on some of those visits with our nurses. And that's it for formal updates, and then there's just one more item about the strategic plan.
Okay, any questions or comments about the update? Okay, thanks, Nicole. Then, moving on to consider approving the Public Health Division's strategic plan for 2023.
So in the fall of 2022, we started on our process to update our strategic plan, and it was a little bit slower than we anticipated, but we really tried to be very thoughtful in looking at the county strategic plan and other strategic plans that really influence what's happening in the health sector. So we had one-to-one meetings with staff throughout the fall of 2022 and really asked some standard questions about what is it like to work in public health? What are some of the major challenges or successes that you've seen? Other things that they think would be impactful to their work. And from there, we formed a small subgroup, worked with the Department of Health to facilitate some small meetings where we worked through strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenge exercise. Looked at key trends, we updated mission, vision, values. We talked about what our key functions are and what are our foundational capabilities and areas that we really should be highlighting and looking at besides the services we provide. And then we engaged the rest of our broader public health division through surveys and discussions at meetings to make sure that we really were capturing what our workforce is looking at for strategic planning in the next 3 years. So this is our snapshot of that. There's 3 components to the plan, kind of the process overview. We have a monitoring and revision document, and then a detailed action plan worksheet where we've got some SMART goals and assignments to specific public health staff. So our 3 main focus areas or operational strategies are to enhance and implement workforce development strategies, develop and implement performance management systems, and support authentic engagement, collaboration, and partnerships.
Okay, so any questions or comments on that? None. This is an action item, so we do need to take action on the Public Health Division Strategic Plan for 2023 and through 2025. So I'd be open to a motion.
So move.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Gray,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Danielewski. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Okay. So So we will adjourn the Community Health Board meeting. Oh, there's our recess. I didn't see that on there. Oh,
That one looks good. I'm thinking it was mine.
but, so I am going to recommend we move in the back for the workshops. So it is just before 11 o'clock. Let's take about 10 minutes to get set up in the back room. And we will open our workshop meetings at 11:10. That give you enough time, Keisha? Should. Okay. Yep.